It's such a privilege and a joy to be here with you this evening. Thank you so much for inviting me. So, as we heard at the beginning from Becca, my name is Frances. I work for Christian Aid. I'm the Faith Communications Advisor, which is a national role working with churches and our global partners to think about how we tell stories, how we share stories of Christian Aid's work. So, it's an absolute delight to be here with you to talk a little bit about what we're doing this Christian Aid Week, and also to reflect on that Bible reading we heard and the passage that came up in the video that you watched as well. Um, and it's particularly special to me this year because though I always work on the stories and I always talk to people and hear interviews from people who've shared their stories with us, I don't always get to go and visit them in person. But in this case, this Christian Aid Week, I did. So I was in Kenya end of January, beginning of February. And funnily enough, I was in Kenya with the Bishop of Blackburn, as you may have heard. And I can say more later, perhaps, about how that came about. But it came about that I was in Kenya with Philip North and some other bishops who are link bishops for the Anglican Diocese of Blackburn. And that was a real joy to be there. And while I was there, I spent some time with Beacon of Hope and with those people that you watched in the film with James, and that was Frida speaking. And I got to see a lot of what they're doing. So I'm going to reflect on that this evening. And then we were able to welcome colleagues from Beacon of Hope to visit us in the UK as well. They came to London, they went to Wales, they went to Scotland, some went to Ireland. So it's fantastic that we were able to welcome them. So it's been a real period of several months of just building up those relationships as we come up to Christian Aid Week. So it's been wonderful to have that and to feel that connection with our global partners. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the project and then do some reflection on some of our Bible readings. So let me just try and share with you some pictures. Let's give this a go. You have heard mentioned, this project that we're talking about is about urban farming. Now, actually, Beacon of Hope do a whole host of things. And it's really important that we reflect on that we capture that, even as we focus in on this particular project. So Christian Aid always wants to work in partnership. Why is that so important to us? It's really important to us because we don't want to be people who are coming into a context that we don't know and saying, here, have some stuff, have some help, have some whatever, and then, potentially we're going to go away, or, we don't really know your context. Instead, what we want to do is we want to identify local partners who are deeply embedded in their communities, who really know those communities and understand both their strengths and their needs. And then we want to support those partners to do what they do best. We want to free them up to support the communities that they know so well. So that's what we're doing with Beacon of Hope. And the story of the start of Beacon of Hope is incredibly inspirational. It was started by a woman named Janet Wahome, who's from Kenya. And she felt called to do something about the situation with informal settlements in Nairobi. Now, you might not have heard that term informal settlements before. In the past, we used terminology like slums or shanty towns, and we don't use that terminology anymore because that's labeling that place in a particular way. But a characteristic of the informal settlements would be that the housing is of not great quality, that it's often semi-permanent using metal sheets to construct housing. There won't be the infrastructure that we take for granted. So there won't be sources of running water in your home. There won't be a reliable electricity supply, sanitation, basic things like that built in. And we see these development of these informal settlements in Nairobi for a whole variety of reasons. The population of Nairobi has increased really quite quickly. And there are parts of the city, that are fantastically thriving, and there are other areas where we have these challenges. And at the moment, actually, about half of the city's population are living in informal settlements. So Janet saw this huge challenge and she felt called by God to respond to that challenge. And she started off by simply taking people and giving them lifts to hospitals and to medical appointments because they didn't have access to transport. So she started doing that. And then she started meeting with people in their homes, in the informal settlements, and praying with them. And then she said, after a while, the women in particular, because it was women often that she was meeting with, said to her, "We love you being here, Janet, but we can't eat your prayers." So she thought, right, okay, I've got to take this a bit further, do a bit more. So she worked with some doctors to set up a medical clinic right there so that people didn't have to travel always for treatment. And when the women came to the clinic, they brought their children with them. So she thought, right, okay, I need to do a little bit more. She set up a crash next to the clinic so that the children could play while their mothers were having the appointments. And Beacon of Hope grew from there, really. And now it's providing medical services and facilities. It's providing schooling right from infant age right through to technical training for teenagers as they're just about to go out into the workforce. And it's doing all kinds of things. And it's doing that embedded in the informal settlements like Dagoretti. So they have their offices placed in those places. So they're really accessible for people. People can just walk to them. So it was amazing to be there with Janet and with her colleagues and with everyone who's working with Beacon of Hope and with all of those who are taking up this training opportunity. And what we focused on for Christian Aid Week was this urban farming project. So this is a project called Imarisha Kilimo, which is Swahili for strengthen agriculture. So the situation in the informal settlements is that when you have families like Frida's, here you can see a picture of Frida, it's very difficult to establish a reliable source of income. So something that you can count on for the future. In a moment, we'll talk about another participant in the project named Belinda, and her husband David is a day labourer. So he works on a daily basis for a building firm. So that is some source of income. But the way that that works is if there's work for him that day, great. If there isn't work for him that day, no money's coming in that day. So it's very hard to plan ahead and get that stable employment. Frida, who you saw on the film that we shared, very tragically, she lost her husband a few months ago in an accident. So Frida is now by herself and she has her twin sons who are 13, Abiad and Eliad. She has an older daughter who has a son, so she has a grandson, Quillan. And she's trying to look after these boys while her daughter seeks more stable, reliable income. And it's really hard to do that in the informal settlements. And Frida found it incredibly challenging to continue that. But she knew that she couldn't give up. So Frida was walking many miles to travel to a wholesaler to buy a small amount of goods to then take back to the informal settlements to sell, to try to make a tiny profit that the next day she could go back and spend at the wholesalers. So this was very much trapping her in this day to day. Again, she can't plan very far ahead because if she doesn't have customers tomorrow, then there won't be any income for her tomorrow. But she was determined, and she expresses this when she said to us, "I can't give up. My children need to go to school. They need to eat." She was absolutely driven. She said, "I could not give up on this." So she was making this 2-hour trip to the wholesalers every day to do this. But then she got involved with Beacon of Hope and with the Imarisha Kilimo project, and that gave her a different option. Because although the space that you have in the informal settlements is extremely small. The houses are very small, they're very closely packed together. You might have just a little bit of outside space. You might have seen it on the video. It looked like an alleyway or a little yard, or maybe even it's just your rooftop. And what they're doing at Beacon of Hope is providing highly specialist training, which maximizes that space to grow as much produce as possible. And really, if you are a gardener, and I do and try and do a bit of gardening, honestly, if you could see what people could achieve in those spaces, you would be absolutely astonished. They're so verdant and abundant because they're really specialized in what they do. So they do a lot of use of recycled materials. They do a lot of making homemade compost, really efficient ways of making compost. They do a lot of vertical planting. They do a lot of wall planting, they do rooftop planting, they teach them about crop rotation, hydroponics, so planting using very little water. And all of this results in this really diverse, amazing crop that they can grow. And that means that households can provide some food for themselves, and they can also have a surplus that they can take to sell. And the difference that this made to Frida is really about breaking that situation where she was stuck in the day to day. I can't think beyond the day ahead of me. The most important thing is, will my children eat tonight? I can't think beyond that. So she says instead, now I can plan. I can plan ahead. I can help my family. And for that reason, she says, urban farming has changed her life. I mentioned we were going to speak about Belinda as well. Belinda just is an incredible person that I met while I was there. She's so inspiring and determined and fierce and brilliant. So Belinda has 5 children. She lives with her husband David, and their house is one room. So they have a bit of a division with a curtain, but it's essentially one room metal sheet housing. And Belinda saw this opportunity to undertake the training with Beacon of Hope, and she was so excited because she loves learning. And actually, she's a really good teacher and inspirer for the rest of the community. Now she's got these skills and she continues learning these skills. So she engaged with the project, and this is her and her family in one of the training gardens that Beacon of Hope have. This is her with 3 youngest children. And she learned all these techniques so that she could develop her own garden and provide that fresh food for her family. So she says, I am a woman who is happy because I know that my family eats the food that I love to grow. And when I met her, she was just radiating that joy of, this is just making such a difference to me and my family. So she uses that produce that she's able to grow to contribute to the household, but also to feed her children. And she can sell the surplus to pay for things like school expenses that her children need. And she really feels like it's given her this boost in confidence as well. So she said to us, thank you for making me an independent woman, is what she said, which was amazing to hear. So it's wonderful that that is happening through Beacon of Hope, and I hope you can see why Christian Aid is wanting to support this work. I think if we look back at that reading that we heard earlier from Isaiah, and we think about what's going on there, that proclamation of justice, and we think about who a prophet is. A prophet, I think, is someone who tells the truth, but often tells an unwelcome truth because they're telling a truth about power. They're deconstructing a notion or an understanding of power. And if you look back in the earlier chapters of Isaiah before this, there's a great deal about what the Lord does not approve of, the practices the Lord does not approve of. And these are about oppressing people. These are about excluding people from power. These are the unjust practices that put people in situations where they are struggling to get by. And in contrast, through the prophet Isaiah, we hear the proclamation, for I, the Lord, love justice. And there, that reading that we had today, that this is the mission, the vision of the Lord for how things should be, and that there is judgment for those who do not pursue that vision. And of course, Jesus in Luke's Gospel reads from Isaiah in the temple and proclaims that this is the mission that he has come to realize. So I think we have there this very powerful call as Christians to respond to that and to reject those forms of injustice that we see named, and to be those who do the work of building justice for the sake of the kingdom. What we see in Kenya is deeply unjust for a variety of reasons, and it has its roots in a whole range of different places. Some of them are to do with the debt burden that the country is carrying. And you may have heard a lot of this talked about around the millennium, with the Millennium Development Goals and Make Poverty History and the Jubilee Debt Campaign. And that was largely addressing government debt. And that was done very successfully. But what wasn't addressed in that campaign was the actions of private creditors. And the influence of private creditors has really increased. And if you want to learn more about that, Christian Aid are running a campaign we're calling Restore, which is looking at debt justice and climate justice and the link between them, and how the countries that are in the most unfair debt arrangements with private creditors are also often those who are bearing the brunt of the climate crisis and are facing that head on. So they've got this dual burden to carry. And we can address that in the UK. And if you look at our Restore campaign materials, they'll tell you some ways that you can raise that in the UK, because we actually have the power to do quite a lot in terms of regulating these systems of private credit to make sure that they're fair to countries. One way to think about it is a little bit like payday loans, if anyone remembers that. It's lending to countries on terms that are really quite unjust and extractive. So that's one of the things that we need to challenge. And we also need to be supportive of organisations like Beacon of Hope that are doing that work embedded in the community, that are allowing people to release that potential and to grow their futures. And I think that's really well expressed in the passage from Luke that James Onwunder from Beacon of Hope shared with us in that video. So talking about the parable of the mustard seed. I don't know if anyone's come across, there's a modern theologian called James Cone, and he says something that I think is really interesting about the kingdom. He says the kingdom isn't a place. We might think of it as a place sort of over there or up there. That's not the kingdom. The kingdom is an action. The kingdom is, James Cone says, what God does. And I find that really interesting, linking our passage from Isaiah as well. It is what God does. But I, the Lord, love justice. It is what God does. And that's why Cone says Jesus compares the kingdom to mustard seed or to yeast, because it's about action. It's this small, insignificant beginning, he says, but with a radical, revolutionary ending. And what is that action directed at? It's directed at liberation, at the doing of justice. And Cone says this is particularly in places where people are suffering and dying for want of human dignity. That's where we see the kingdom action going on. So that parable of the mustard seed really spoke to James at Beacon of Hope in terms of his work. And you saw he said there in the video, we know the story of the mustard seed, a very small seed that became a very big tree that everybody looked up at. My work is really to help people understand that their mustard seed can grow into a very big tree that can support multiples of people through many, many years. And he's able to say that because, as I say, Beacon of Hope know their community and they take this strength-based approach. So they go to people in Dagoretti and they say, what are you good at? What is your talent? What do you need? What is your vision? What is your dream? What is the change that you are making? What is the action you want to take? And let's remove the barriers to that and help you realize that. So they see in Belinda this love for learning and this infectious enthusiasm that's brought so many other women in the community along with them. And they see in Frida that incredible dedication and bravery that she has, even in a time of grief, to try something new to support her family. So Frida and Belinda are confronting those daily challenges of life in Dagoretti, and they're taking the opportunity to grow. And that commitment that they've got to the urban farming project has produced not just crops, but greater security, independence, and more options for them and their families. And even in those tiny, tiny spaces, they're making transformative changes. So my encouragement to you this Christian Aid Week and beyond is, first of all, to live out your love in prophetic action, even where you might feel it's slightly unwelcome. Remember, when we speak prophetically, it may not always be well received, but nonetheless, live it out, live that kingdom reality out in action. And the second is to expect big things from small steps, just like the mustard seed. So please join us in planting those seeds of change, and you'll be part of a transformation that is greater than you could possibly have imagined. You'll be part of that work of making our world resemble more closely God's kingdom of love and justice. And if you're still thinking, I'm not sure what I'm going to do, I'm not sure that there's much I can do, and we know it can be a challenge to feel like you can respond when our global situation seems quite bleak at times. I want to give you some advice from Belinda, because I think this is brilliant advice. So she said to Christian Aid that when she faces a challenge, she does two things. She says, most of the time I pray. Then also I have a friend I share with. She gives me advice and I become strong. So talk to God, talk to your friends, talk to someone in your house, talk to someone at church next Sunday, and talk about how you're going to take on this challenge, to plant the seed and to support your global neighbours. And thank you so much for all you are already doing for Christian Aid Week and all these wonderful things I've heard about in the chat. So before we conclude, what I wanted to do was share with you another resource that we developed whilst I was in Kenya, which is a worship song that Christian Aid have launched jointly with a Kenyan music artist called Pete Adara. And Pete is known as the father of urban gospel in Nairobi. He's an incredible musician. And we commissioned him and asked him to write a song that can be used both in churches in Kenya and hopefully in churches in the UK as well. And we made a film of this song being launched at Nairobi Baptist Church. And what a night that was. We had an incredible evening of gospel worship and praise music leading up to this launch. And it was just full of joy and enthusiasm. So I thought to get everyone energised for Christian Aid Week, and perhaps to see a little bit of the Bishop of Blackburn dancing as well, if that's your cup of tea, you might like to watch the video of us launching this song. So hopefully this will work. And you've got the words of the chorus there at the bottom, if you would like to join in. Let me...
Justice and God of grace, grant us peace as we honor your name. Restore the rivers, the oceans and lands. Bring it now with the strength of your hand. Your great name is a strong and mighty tower. Your name, every day and every hour. Your name, full of justice, full of power. Restore the rivers, the oceans and flowers. Your name is a strong and mighty tower. Your name, every day and every hour. Your name, full of justice, full of power. Restore the rivers, the oceans and flowers. Your name, Bwana wa haki, Bwana wa neema, Bwana wa neema, Bwana wa neema, tupe amani, tukikuheshimu. Twarejesha mito, bahari na ardhi. Hukumu mataifa kwa mkono wako. Your great name, jina lako is a strong and mighty tower. Your name, jina lako, every day and every hour. Your name, jina lako, una haki na uwezo. restore the rivers, the oceans and flowers. Your name is a strong and mighty tower. Your name, every day and every hour. Your name, una hakina uwezo. Restore the rivers, the oceans and flowers. Your name. Let's call down everything that exalts itself up against the name of Christ. You do this. Racism, fall. Injustice, fall. Greed, fall. Theft, fall. Hatred, fall. Exploitation, fall. Oppression, fall. Ungodliness, fall. Strife, fall. Negativity, fall. Envy, fall. Slavery. Your great name is a strong and mighty tower. Your name, every day and every hour. Your name, una hakina uwezo. Restore the rivers, the oceans and flowers. Your name is a strong and mighty tower. Your name, every day and every hour. Your name, una hakina uwezo. Restore the rivers, the oceans and flowers. Your name is a strong and mighty tower. Your name, every day and every hour. Your name, una hakina uwezo. Restore the rivers, the oceans and flowers. Your name is a strong and mighty tower. Your name, every day and every hour. Your name, una hakina uwezo. Restore the rivers, the oceans and flowers. Your name, your name.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much. As you can imagine, at the end of that evening, our faces were hurting because we'd been smiling so much, and our hands were hurting because we'd been clapping so much, but it was a fantastic evening. So it was so wonderful to be here with you and share. Please do, if you have any questions about the project or about anything else, get in touch either with me through Phil or email. You can email hello@Christian Aid, or just pick up the phone and talk to one of our lovely team, and they'll be more than happy to help you with any questions you may have. But thank you. I will hand back over to our wonderful worship team.
Thank you, Frances, for speaking so well and for showing the pictures. I'm a grower myself, and to see the joy in the faces of Frida and Belinda and their families is really inspiring. And you've given us much to think about and to go back and look at from the resources of Christian Aid, and indeed to listen to your talk again. I certainly will do that. Thank you.